Okay. Hi, guys. We're live. Thank you very much for joining us live today. We've got another fun show for you. Hopefully, thank you for all the people that watched us when we were doing the election night coverage live. I think a lot of people really enjoyed it. And Kushal and Abhijit, we got a lot of good feedback on that show as well. So thanks, guys, for the feedback. And I'm very happy that you enjoyed that show. Today's episode is not going to be necessarily a sort of minute by minute coverage of what's going on in the election, but rather a discussion of the more likely outcome and what that means if the likely outcome does end up happening, and what that means for the United States, what that means for India, and so on and so forth. So obviously, to help me discuss that, I've got Abhijit and Kushal. Welcome, guys.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya. All right, so where are we right now? So if we look at like the CNN site, for example, it looks like at the moment, and obviously things might change, but it's looking more and more likely. So it looks like at the moment that Georgia has sort of flipped for Biden. It's a very, very tiny lead, but it's also 99% of the reporting has been done. Pennsylvania seems to have flipped as well, quite strongly for Biden. Well, it's also not a huge lead, but that's with 95% of the votes done. Michigan flipped in a big way for Biden. Arizona has been uncalled for Biden, but Biden still's got a lead in it. Nevada, Biden still got a lead in it with 89% reported. Arizona, 90% reported. So, Abhijit, we're looking more or less, I suppose, at a scenario where Biden does end up getting the presidency. And I know you were talking about the legal challenge that's probably going to be mounted by Trump and his campaign against this result. But the only problem with that, legal challenge as well is that besides, there's a slight implausibility at the certain level of coordination that Trump is obviously suggesting. But the other problem with that theory is also that Republicans have won Senate seats in states that he lost and gained in the House. So it kind of looks, I think Seth Mandel from, I think it was National Review who made this argument. No, New York Post made this argument that it looks a little bit less like fraud and a little bit more like a little bit of fatigue with Trump as a person and not with the Republicans, really. What do you make of that?
So, see, here's the issue. The mail-in, right, has been done very strategically in certain states, which are not necessarily congruent with the Senate races. So you're looking at two completely different areas of fraud, right?
Yeah.
Now, that there is fraud, I think in my mind, there's no doubt about it. I think we've seen egregious examples of it on video throughout. There's that case of this woman, filling in ballots. And the official explanation given was that she was just highlighting places where pencil markings had faded.
I saw
Now,
that, yeah.
And mind you, absolutely no visual confirmation of this. The very fact that election observers were thrown out and not allowed to observe the counting.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen in democracies. Had this happened in India or any other country, the kicking out of election observers would have been seen as vote grabbing.
Yep.
Right. It's only in America that this will be hailed. And mind you, this was Trump versus certain elements of Fox News, plus Biden, plus Kamala, plus CNN, plus all your woke pansies, plus the rioters, Black Lives Matter, plus all of that. So it was literally one man against the rest. Irrespective, am I disappointed? Of course I am. Has there been fraud? Yes, there has been veritable fraud in several cases. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court, for example, throughout opposed the throwing out of votes where the signature of the voter didn't match the signature on record. Can you believe that? Okay. So there are accumulated examples of this coming out.
Yeah.
The Pennsylvania government also got an order prior from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court saying that they can accept mail-in ballots till the 12th of November.
Yeah.
Okay,
Wow.
so don't give me this. This isn't fraud. This isn't like the, even in Florida in 2000, it
Mm.
wasn't a case of fraud, it was a case of interpreting the rules,
Mm.
right? Now, the thing is, I'm going to see where the legal challenge goes in all of this. So
So
I
how do you
don't agree that
explain the Senate gains and the House gains that the Republicans have made?
I think Senate gains, I think as a rule, Senate and presidential elections in people's minds are completely different. They swing
Sure,
to
that's a
local
good point.
issues and not to national issues.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Uh, in America, that is much clearer than it is in other countries.
Mm.
And it's mostly because of the commentariat in India. If anything goes, then it's a Modi wave according to the BJP, or it's the local chief minister won in spite of
Yeah.
Modi because of the commentariat, because they're so notoriously fickle.
Yeah.
Uh, so I disagree with that completely. I don't think that is the case, but I think there's been a lot less fraud in the Senate elections, because I think the Senate, the people getting elected to the Senate went as divisive, except on the left, where
Mm.
this latest Black Lives Matter nut job has been elected to some seat, Corinne or whatever her name is,
Corinne Bush, right?
whatever. Let's just call her
From
Banshee number
from from
25.
from Missouri. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Missouri.
Missouri.
Yeah, Banshee number 25.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's fine. It's fine. These things happen. I think what's important for everyone to remember is that the victory of Biden, if it holds in the Supreme Court, and I think it will hold in the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
will be a tainted victory. You're going to see a lot of angry middle America. And it's good
Yes.
that this happened in that sense, because, see, I think middle America took things for granted. This sort
Yeah.
of thought control being imposed by the two coasts, this dar ka mahol. And literally, that is what it is in America. Because if you
Yeah.
live in the two coasts and you're pro Trump, you risk your job, you risk your career, you risk a lot of things.
Well, weren't we talking, the couple of days when we were discussing the results, that Darka Mahal, speaking of Darka Mahal, just to add to your point, we were talking about how in these big cities, all these shops are being boarded, and they're
Yeah.
not being boarded for Trump supporters.
But here's the point. So now we're going to see the pushback against the Dar ka mahol.
Hmm.
And this is where you can have one of two results. Either that middle America is that strong, resilient America we knew that is now going to
Hmm.
push back, or it is going to be a Mahmoud Ghori 1192 style campaign where when the king falls, everything else falls.
Yeah. I
But
seriously doubt that. I seriously doubt that if Trump falls, that this whole entire thing, the Republican Party essentially falls apart because of the gains again that they've made in the Senate. And 2022 is going to be extremely difficult for Biden because I do believe that they're going to be facing a very invigorated Republican Party. Because what happened in 2016 was basically this guy comes in and kind of just runs roughshod over the Republican Party. He kind of just takes the control of the Republican Party by the scruff of its neck. And now the Republican Party is like, all right, we have to get our shit together.
which is why the Republicans may have a lot of resentment against Trump and they won't fight back. This was exactly the scenario with India.
Hmm.
That king of Kannauj who didn't like Prithviraj Chauhan, he
Yeah.
never came to Prithviraj Chauhan's help, remember?
Yeah.
So are the Republicans going to be like the king of Kannauj who never come to his help? I don't
Yeah.
know. Let's see. I mean, interesting times, the good
It
thing that
is.
I can very conclusively, and where I agree completely with Sadanand Bhoomi,
Hmm.
is that it is no longer a relationship between two institutional powers.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris and co, not Biden. Biden is a sane, even guy. Okay.
Yes. I agree with
He's
that.
not the type who's going to rock the boat, but Kamala is.
Yes.
And Kamala owes a lot to that woke pansy brigade of, Banshees 1 to 25, starting with Ilhan Omar.
Yeah. She's
Uh,
tried her best for the past 2 years to cozy up to these people.
yeah. And the problem is, you look at the way she and that ugly woman, that hideously ugly woman, what's her name? The one who looks like a cross between a gorilla and orangutan.
You tried to
Pramila, yes.
get my channel
Pramila.
demonetized, dude.
I'm
Oh
sorry.
my God. There you
Well,
go.
I'm sorry. I can't help it if she looks that butt ugly. You know, she should have got some plastic surgery done. Pramila Traitor
Oh
Pal.
yeah,
And
they both got elected. Ro Khanna and Pramila, they both got
Rokhanna, another sleaze.
both snaky snakes got elected.
Yeah, all snaky snakes.
Yeah.
So all these people, remember, they are the classic examples of how Indians in America will happily turn on India
Yeah.
if their electoral futures depend on it. And in this case, the jihadist lobby has these people by the shorts and curlies.
Yeah.
So even if we can have faith that Biden will not rock the boat, the problem is Biden is in some kind of advanced dementia.
Yes.
Or Alzheimer's or whatever you want to. I don't know what it is, but there is something wrong with his cognitive abilities out there, with his memory abilities out there.
Yeah, and they've kept him going, injecting him with some, I don't know, bull semen or something, I don't know, but they've kept him going so far.
He might even die early because of the kind of injections they give him.
Yeah.
But I think what's important to remember, I think there was a very interesting, anyway, I've forgotten. But I think what's important to note out here is that this administration is not going to be very friendly towards India, but it's not just going to be not friendly towards India. If it is no longer institutional and if it gets personalized, which Kamala Harris will do, it will also not be friendly to Israel. It will not be friendly to Saudi Arabia, UAE, and co.
Do you think at this point the US has a choice really with its relationship with Israel? Like the sort of Jewish.
I would like to take you back to when Obama shoved the JCPOA down everybody's throats. He literally risked relations with Israel. Netanyahu hated him, made no bones about the fact that they hated each other. Obama, in fact, degraded the intelligence sharing relationship with Israel. Saudi Arabia and the UAE out. The UAE kind of managed it better because, the UAE never sticks its neck out. But kind of threw Saudi Arabia under the truck. So there was a deep, deep hatred of Obama in Saudi Arabia. Threw Japan under the truck. Don't forget, do you remember over the Senkaku Islands? The Obama administration came out with a statement saying that our alliance only extends to if Japanese territory is attacked, implying that Senkaku, because it's disputed, would not be counted as an attack if an attack by China happened.
Right.
Let's be clear. The countries that hate Trump are only Europe. Okay. Because Europe is a museum. It's basically the world's biggest open-air museum.
Yeah.
So what happens out here is, the problem is that America's elite are so Eurocentric. They see that for them, their only validation comes from Europe's ideas and ideals.
Right.
Because that is where they want to be. And so for them, foreign policy is essentially what NATO thinks. Whereas you look at Korea, Australia, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Israel, all of whom have been solid American allies, their view of Trump is significantly more positive.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right. So there are all these nuances out here. I think Biden will end up, and I think these are the foreign policy traps in a sense that Trump has laid. That for Biden to proceed now, he will have to destroy a lot of what Trump has done, including now the Abraham Accords.
Yeah.
Right. So let's see. I'm waiting and watching. If I can't have it, I intend to burn it down.
What do you make of? So first of all, Aadit, thanks for joining us and welcome to the stream.
Hey guys, sorry for being a little late.
No worries at all. Deer hai durust hai basically.
So I was looking at the numbers और उसमें देर हो गई.
Yeah, let me come to you, Aadit, and before I come to Kushal. So with we were talking. I was talking to Abhijit about the kind of the way results have panned out, and since you're you're living in the US, you probably have an eye on these things with the re-election of people like Praminal Jaipal, people like Ro Khanna, and the way Indians have voted. So first, so this is going to be basically two questions. So first, tell me about like your experience on what and what you've noticed in terms of how Indians have voted in this particular election in terms of Democrat and Republicans. And secondly, what do you make of the re-election of people like Pramila Jayapal and Ro Khanna? Like, is America's policy towards India going to sort of go back to how bad it used to be? Is it going to change drastically? What is your feeling on it?
So there are the first question about how Indian Americans have voted. I think we need to view that question in two parts also. Because most Indian Americans are in basically four areas. You have the tri-state area, which is New York, Jersey, Philadelphia. Then you have Texas area, California area. Well, three areas. I was counting New York and New Jersey separate, but I think we can count them as one. So three areas. So majority of the Indian Americans live here, and especially the ones in New York and California lean heavily Democratic. So, I mean, the split there is almost, I would say, 80-20 or 70-30.
Okay.
And, same in Texas. So, if you look at the overall picture of Indian Americans, rather than last time it was, 80-20, I think I'll wait for the surveys to come out, but I think this time it should be more like 65-35 or 60-40 in favor of the Democrats. It's still... But where we have to see is how do Indian Americans in places like Florida, Michigan, places like their vote. Now, agreed, they're only 1% of the population, but they have 200,000, 300,000.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference now.
The margins are so low. You know, who knows? I mean, who knew Georgia would be decided in a few thousand votes?
Right.
That is, they have two qualifications going for them. One, it's the home of a lot of Republican voices. Two, it's the home of Chick-fil-A. So I think,
that's true.
So I don't know how the home of Chick-fil-A is also voting for Democrat this time.
For the record, I really like Chick-fil-A. I know whatever their policies are, but that sandwich is bloody good.
It's not about policies. Also, at this time, it's become Chick-fil-A has sort of had a cult following in America.
Chick-fil-A is good shit.
But one thing I'm going to tell, and I'll come back to Ro Khanna and Pramila Jayapal in a minute. But what Abhijit said, right? So what is interesting is we don't have to look at Biden as we would look for another president in the first term, because we can go out on a limb and almost say that Biden is not going to run for re-election at 82 or 83.
No way. I'm doubtful he'll last the 4 years.
In the first term, typically US presidents frame policies that will help them in re-election. And so with Trump, it was tax cuts, his war on an ACA, Affordable Care Act, which happened in the first 6 months. He thought it would go through, but we know John McCain, because of him, it didn't go through and everything.
Right.
So I think Joe Biden is already going to be a legacy president.
Yeah.
So he's already going to start doing things because he doesn't give, pardon my language, two shits about re-election. He'll just come and start doing his stuff. So I agree with the foreign policy angle of it, that Joe Biden might just revamp and have his own thing. What is interesting here is, who does Joe Biden pick in his cabinet? Because not just the far left of the I personally don't want the far left of the Democratic Party anywhere close to this. I personally think Joe Biden is very more uncomfortable working with them than we are, because he doesn't want to answer for what
to those guys.
Yesterday, AOC was asked by an ex-Democratic senator who lost her seat in Missouri, very centrist senator, McCaskill or something, about going to the center. And AOC said, I don't take advice from people who have lost the election.
Wow.
Such is the obnoxiousness of the far.
That's who we're dealing with,
Yeah. And as far as Ro Khanna and Pramila Jayapal go, thankfully they don't anchor like the policy on India and other things.
Right.
Makes me.
But do you feel like that will happen now? Do you feel like that those chances have increased now?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We would like to believe that their value and worth in Democratic Party has increased, but I don't think that happening. शायद एक दो को post मिल जाए, Secretary of Urban Housing and Development and things like that. And Abhijit and Kushal, those Secretary of Urban Housing are exactly as bad in India as they are in India. So if you don't want to give them a significant post, they give them Urban and Rural Development Ministry. So that's what I think the reality is. But at this point, I think we have to say that it is a Biden presidency for sure. There is no way Trump can recover the ground in Georgia and Pennsylvania. I honestly think if he wins Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Arizona, I don't even think Trump will mount much of a legal challenge because it costs money. He'll have to put in a lot of his own money, and now he's going to start thinking more like an industrialist and less like a president once he
Yeah.
wins the election.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows what kind of attacks?
And I
Like,
don't know if you've heard, but his campaign is woefully short of money because it was self-financed. So they
oh
will
wow.
actually have to raise money to mount a legal challenge. So Lindsey Graham gave them, I think, $500,000 yesterday.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah,
Okay, so Kushal, let me show you a tweet, and I kind of want to get your response on that tweet. This is from that again wonderful lady AOC that Adit was talking about. So this is a tweet that she posted. She said that this whole progressivism is bad argument just doesn't have any compelling evidence that I've seen. When it comes to defund and socialism attacks, people need to understand that these are racial resentment attacks. You're not going to make that go away. You can make it less effective. Do you agree with that sentiment at all?
See, there is stupid and then there is AOC.
I was thinking.
I'd start with that. First of all, if there is the race angle, then 4% increase in vote in African Americans
Yeah.
For Trump. There is an increase in
Yeah,
vote
let me
in
read this out for you. So
Latinos.
it'll just bolster the case that you're making. So this is from Real Clear Politics. So Trump has gained 2 points with white women, 4 points with black men, 4 points with black women, 3 points with Latino men, 3 points with Latino women, and 5 points in the other races, not non-white category. In Florida, according to the NBC News exit polling, Trump's coalition included a 55% share of the Cuban American vote and a 30% share of the Puerto Rican vote and 48% of other Latinos. So
see, Kushal,
there you go.
they're going to split the Latinos also. Till last
Yeah.
election, Latinos were a monolith. Now Cuban American, Puerto Rican, and Mexican Americans are three separate ones.
Yeah, वो तो clear है. I had mentioned last time also how the Latinos became white is going to be the next book they're going to write. Like how the Irish became white.
Start doing Indians are not South Asians
This
first.
is already discussed. You remember, Latinos are this one of these nut jobs, woke pansy nut jobs tweeted this out. There's no such thing as Latinos. There are black
1617
Cubans
1619 project.
Yeah.
1619. That nut job who came up with the ahistorical piece of shit history tweeted this. And there are white people from Cuba, dark people from Puerto Rico. You can't club them all together. But that said, that is actually fairly accurate. Ethnically speaking, it is accurate. We should forget that. Because Latinos have always been clumped together and they don't function as one in that
they're not a
sense.
monolith. But the funny thing
Because
is,
even their identities, from what I've noticed,
no, I was saying that it is the progressives or the left over here who have clubbed them together and now they're uncoupling them. But one thing I'll tell you before you say, Kushal, and this is a very interesting thing. In Miami-Dade Congressional District 27, Clinton loyalist Donna Shalala, who had some very colorful things to say about Ayurveda and stuff when she was in a Clinton administration, was a Democrat voice. She lost to a Latino Republican, Maria Elvira Salazar. And that's a Democratic seat. And that 2 or 3 of those flips have happened. So I think Florida is on its path to become Ohio as a Republican sort of stronghold. And one thing I'll tell you, so I don't know if you guys know, in every 10 years, America, based on census, adjusts its electoral votes. So in 2020, after the census, for the next election, they are projecting that a few electoral votes will be adjusted. And New York and California are set to lose one, and so are some other states. The 2 states that are gaining the most?
Who?
Texas and Florida.
Oh, yeah, because all the Californians are moving to Texas.
The Democrats are not going to like it. So ultimately, Texas and Florida as a combination will become equivalent to what California and New York are to the left.
Yeah.
That is what we are entering in American politics. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, Kushal. Go ahead.
I'm going to offer a slightly different point of view there. The problem is, as they get urbanized, they will also get democratized. Okay, because you've seen this with Houston and all the urban areas in Texas, Austin. You've seen this around Florida as well. I think you're going to see this wherever there is this sort of, they almost come like an infection, it's like a zombie infection. That what happens is Democrats move into all the red states because the labor laws are much better for them there.
Yes.
But the
And
problem
that
is, like,
is-
the trash we export to America. Sorry, Adi, I'm not talking about you, but the kind of the remaining 75% trash that I'm talking about. They take the communism that they faced here
Yeah.
and they try to create the same communist model in America. So let me give you the simple example. I think we spoke about this earlier as well. Boeing, which
Yeah.
moved from Everett in near Seattle in Washington State to North Carolina, which and they did it because it was non-unionized. Labor there was non-unionized. You're going to see the slow unionization and things like that happen in North Carolina as well.
Yeah.
I think this is very, very important for the way we look at the Republican voter base in its entirety.
Right.
I think Republicans need to start reading the writing on the wall that they are losing Middle America. Before, Colorado was the only one that used to decisively vote blue.
Yeah.
Now Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico have also joined that league twice in a row almost. North Carolina is slowly joining that league. There is something happening out there which now needs to be countered. Because remember, this kind of race baiting and ethnocentric politics that the Democrats play,
Right.
it plays very well to losers. Okay, so the more discontent and all the Democrats have to do is keep ruining the economy, and the more lazy shits you have out on the roads, the more votes Democrats have. It's actually in the Democratic interest to screw over the economy. Number one. Number two, remember there's also the services, and this was a very important point. I think Claire Lehman made in Quillette, that this unlike the manufacturing economy that depends on actual jobs, actual scientific knowledge and quality control and all of that, services jobs are basically humanity schmucks that get unemployable humanity schmucks that get employment somewhere or the other.
Right.
And it's that perpetual inferiority complex at play out there. In that way, I'd say that in much the same way that Narasimha Rao, because of his path-breaking reforms that no prime minister has ever done since then, he literally created the Indian middle class, which then turned on the Congress and voted for the BJP in large numbers. You are seeing a fundamental shift in the nature of the American vote, where they are all going to vote for the same people that created this whole information age ecosystem. Remember, the information age economy was started by Presidents Bush and Reagan. That is the critical point in the 80s when the transition from manufacturing to services happens, right?
Right.
So in that way, this has also been laid by the Republicans that's going to eat the Republicans. And finally, the third part in this entire puzzle is, which it's not the third part, it's kind of augments part 1 and 2, is that it's increasingly people who are left-wing are staying left-wing. They are not hitting 30 and moving to the right. Okay?
Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And this is a trend that has been observed. It was, I think several authors have pointed to this trend for a long time. I think it's time for the Republicans to sit down and have a long, clear, strategic look at what is happening, because I see this as the beginning of a tide. There may be a fight back, but a fight back without a strategy simply is not enough. The point here is, how are you
What
going
do
to
you
fight
attribute
back?
that to? What do you attribute that to? The trend that people, don't get when they get older, they do not turn from the sort of far left ways. Is it, do you attribute that to the sort of the takeover of these far left ideas in colleges around America? Or do you attribute that to like pop culture? Or do you attribute that to sort of like a certain
I
amount of like
attribute that
prudishness on the part of the conservatives?
ecosystem and who America's enemy is. Till 1991, America's enemy was communism. It was leftism. So you couldn't peddle leftist shit in colleges. Now, America's enemy is Russia, not communism, or a competitor is China, not communism. It is not a battle of ideas and ideology anymore. It is back to pure, simple geopolitics. Before, geopolitics was masked very heavily in ideology.
Right.
So what you're seeing here is that you've seen this entire leftist ideology take over and create an ecosystem, create a validation mechanism. And this is, of course, what Modi also doesn't understand, because he's not broken that entire ecosystem in India.
Yeah.
And this is what Trump tried to do in America, but failed to do. And that is why there was so much hatred against him.
Yeah. I agree with that.
But imagine if Modi had tried to do that, 2019 may have gone exactly the same way as 2020 did for Trump.
Really? Do you think so?
I think so. So the thing is, he's, in that sense, I think Trump was much more loyal to the ideological job he was given than Modi has been. Modi has been very loyal to himself, not the ideology.
Okay, Kushal. So let me get back to you with that question. Sorry, that I was asking about this whole. This is a time where I feel like if you're the winning party and if you won by the sort of skin of your teeth, so to say, which looks like might be the case here, what you should probably be doing is you should be trying to build like a broader consensus, and you should be trying to get as many people on board as possible. But that's kind of not what we're seeing here. And let me, I showed you the tweet from AOC. Obviously, she's basically saying that this is racial resentment on the part of the whites, which is why Biden has not won by a landslide and so many people have still voted for Trump. On the other hand, you have, articles like this. You have this article from the Daily Beast, which is, turns out white women relate more to their whiteness than their gender. Turns out white women do not want any better for America than their husbands do. Molly Jong-Fast thinks about factors that stop the repudiation of Trump that she'd hoped for. Another one is, if the 2020 election taught us anything, we learned that party preference, polling data, and even a pandemic all pale in comparison to the most important influence in American politics, whiteness. And, you think of the speech that Martin Luther King made, that famous speech that he made, and he talked explicitly about, not taking out the anger, like understanding that Black people are angry at the lack of justice, but not taking out that anger on people who expressly want to be your allies. And he said that, look at all the white people that have come to support us here today, and we have to make them feel welcome because they've taken a bold step to come and support us today. That is not what we are seeing here at all. Despite the Democrats having most likely won, we're not seeing an attempt on some of these thinkers and some of these thought leaders, whatever you want to call them, at building that broader consensus. It's still like, white people bad, go away, we don't want you. Just vote for us and then go away.
Well, it stems. Think like a politician. There's a politician only wants votes. Anybody who's worked with a politician will understand that's how politicians think. They only think what's going to give me votes. They don't care about anything else. There is no such thing as ideology with politicians. They are like television cameras. Whatever channel you want to see, they become that channel. So if you want to see Z News, they'll become Z News. If you want to see Republic, they'll become Republic. Politicians don't have an inner core. So I don't agree with Abhijit on that at all. Totally. I've never met a single politician who's an ideologue. Give that, they're only an ideologue as long as they think being an ideologue gets me the victory. That's all it is. So the politicians don't behave like that. Politicians behave on the basis of what wins them. The Democrats and their fundamental assumption was that if we keep on peddling this inspired by critical race theory and with a tadka of postmodernism, because people don't realize postmodernism and critical race theory were opposed to each other in the 1960s.
Yes.
They became bedfellows because it has now gone into applied postmodernism. That's a good term that is used by Helen Pluckrose and James Lindsay. They call it applied postmodernism. I think that's a very good term. So in applied postmodern terms, they thought that if we create this coalition based on the Operation Olympics, we will win an election. But the data is clear that beyond a point, when the rubber meets the road, that it starts hitting you. So if critical race theory and this whole Operation Olympics was true, then why did the African American or the Latino vote, or in that case, even the Asians, one vote that nobody wants to talk about? Shadi Hamid tweeted about it. Muslims voted for Trump.
Yeah.
And it has increased. Muslims, the vote percentage of Muslims voting for Donald Trump has increased in this election. So you have to understand, the media was against Trump. It's quite obvious. You leave Fox News aside, the media was against Trump. Twitter and Facebook, it is unheard of that a private company is actively censoring tweets of the President of the United States of America. They were actively doing it.
Yep.
They were doing it actively.
For it.
Yeah. So you have the monopsonies. These are not monopolies. They are monopsonies, Twitter and Facebook. They have control over your life basically now.
Yeah.
People don't realize Twitter and Facebook are the biggest threat to free speech, more than the government of America will ever be in our lives. They are the threat to free speech, Twitter and Facebook. Now you have Twitter and Facebook against him. You have the entire media complex against him. And you have all your intellectuals. पता नहीं वो कोई नंगे हो रहे हैं, बोल रहे हैं mail in ballot करो वीडियो में. I don't get it. I mean, कोई नंगा होता है, कोई क्या करता है. And you have the entire machinery, and then you defeat him in Georgia by 1,000 votes.
Yeah.
And then you defeat him in Michigan by a few thousand votes. This is not like he has been defeated by lakhs of votes in the swing states. You have to get the data. Now, people might say, even if they won by 1 vote, he's lost. I'm not saying whether he... See, that's a separate issue. But there is a way to assess how Trump lost.
Yeah.
Trump has literally lost by a whisker.
Yeah.
And this is the best they had. This is their best. They can't top it.
Yeah.
Because if they try to do anything worse than that, there will be chaos in America. And that they can't afford, because when it comes to chaos, the other side, there is only one side that owns the guns.
Exactly.
So there are...
You don't mess with the side that owns the guns. It's very simple. You don't mess with that side. These people
so this is what, remember, this is what it is coming down to. Understand the democratic plan out here. On one hand, they want a country free of guns. Okay. And on the other, they are the ones that have funded, aided, and abetted these Black Lives Matter riots.
Yeah.
Because they want a different kind of social violence. Gun owners are different people, and rioters, rapists are a different kind of people. And basically, the democratic guns are the rapists, the rioters, and people like that.
No, but see, this is again, this is not partially correct, because if you look at the gun data too, that post-COVID, the highest amount of increase in guns was in California. There were lines after lines, and there were
Illinois, deep blue Illinois. Yeah, people are
so
buying
they
guns.
suddenly have realized the value of guns when they saw, people rioting on the streets in big cities. So the attitude changed. You can check the numbers. I checked the numbers.
Remember, we have to also see who bought those guns. Remember, Illinois and California got
Sorry,
votes for
just finish your point, Abhijit. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Abhijit, and then I'll come to it. Yeah.
Illinois and California saw a huge number. There were 3 million votes plus for Trump in California. 2 or 3 million votes. So we don't know who bought those guns. We don't know the affiliation. It could be that people who are genuinely, it reinforced their faith in guns. I don't know. But let's see. I think unless we get down to a statistics of who the political affiliations of who bought those guns, I would always stay on the side of Republicans tend to buy guns, and Democrats, there are very few gun-owning Democrats, period.
So go ahead, Aadit.
Yeah, so there are two things, right? On guns, there is also this thing where the Southern Democrats, especially in Texas, Florida, and stuff like that, they don't mind owning guns as much as the Northeastern or the Southwestern Democrats do. The New York, California Democrats. In fact, Anthony Bourdain, when he came to Texas, he did this whole thing because he was as Democrat as it gets,
Right.
and he's like, when you hold, it's not ideological as much
Right.
as it, but coming back to the point of what Kushal said, that this is the best that the Democratic Party can do. I agree, because this was the first time you had the far left and the center left coming together without any sort of issues. Because even last time you saw a lot of Bernie supporters saying we'll not vote for Hillary, and and a lot of people who voted for Obama did not vote for Hillary, and that some of those votes went to Trump, some of those votes went to the third party, and clearly that is what swung the states of Michigan and Wisconsin. So
Right.
this time, the reason why the Michigan and Wisconsin people thought that the Democrats would win by a big margin was because they thought they will all come back and they'll all vote. But Trump has actually done better than what they expected, and Wisconsin was only 20,000 votes. Like if you look,
Yeah, exactly 20,000. Yeah.
yeah, right, and then that's about more than 3.5 million voters or something like that.
Yep.
So think about this. That's like less than 0.5% or something like that.
So close.
Right. So Michigan was a little more significant, like little more comfortable win for the Democrats compared to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Certainly not what we would expect, but Trump did do a lot better than what many people thought he would.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to get this back, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the divisions within the Republican, yes, the Trump Republicans might go a little further away if there is a centrist Republican who is focusing on the economy who comes in 2024, which may well happen, because when the Democrats come for like one-term Democrats like Jimmy Carter or something, you have a Reagan-like figure or a George W. Bush type figure who is more of right of center on economics, national security who comes. But I personally see a lot of fights happening within the Democratic Party, because Biden, whatever you say, and I have a lot of disagreements with him, I don't think he's personally that far left, so he's uncomfortable working with them. So the cabinet will not see the sort of the progressives like AOC or Ro Khanna or Pramila Jayapal in significant roles. There are rumors that John Kasich and John McCain's wife might be accommodated into the cabinet.
Huh.
Yeah, if that happens, that is probably going to be one of the first times since and don't think this hasn't happened on this scale before. There's a guy called Robert Gates who was a defense secretary under George W. Bush, and when Obama came, he continued for 2.5 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so Obama and Biden, and because Obama also had this thing that he had to shed the baggage that he's not going to go straight away to the far left. So Obama sort of in the first term at least was a little centrist, and especially on national security. The problem is, as Abhijit said, is you'll still have the institute Democrats. And I'm not saying institutional, I'm saying institute by colleges and things like that. And the Hollywood Democrats trying to sort of outrage more about healthcare and things than even, trying to be more loyal than the king.
Right.
How does Biden manage them? That is the thing. And then there is the Kamala Harris factor. Because this is essentially, this is probably going to be the first vice president as powerful as Dick Cheney was during George W. Bush.
Yeah. So,
how that works remains to be seen.
So, Kushal, before I want you to join in, but I want to ask you one more question as well. So, make your point and then answer this question as well. There are a lot of claims being made that the victory is as narrow as it is because it's Biden and because people think Biden's a corpse, so they didn't want to vote for him that much. But the allegation a lot of people are making is that if it was Bernie against Trump, Bernie would have wiped the floor with Trump. What do you think of that assertion?
Oh, in fact, that was the point I wanted to make. And do you remember? I think it was just you and I on a podcast. We were discussing American elections, and you had asked me a year and a half ago, and you had told me, "Tell me one man who can probably defeat Trump." याद है मैंने क्या नाम लिया था? मैंने Biden बोला था.
Biden, yeah.
याद है मैंने 1.5 साल पहले I had told you that there's only one man who can beat Trump, and that too by a narrow whisker. And that was Biden, because see, the thing with Biden is he doesn't offer anything else other than I'm harmless.
Yes.
That's a very important point.
See, with Bernie Sanders, you may not like it. There are people who love Bernie Sanders. He's like the left-wing version of Trump. But there are enough people who hate Bernie Sanders. With Biden, they're just like, meh, whatever.
Nice old man, Obama's friend.
आधा मरा वैसा ही है. देखो वो आधा तो वैसे ही मरा हुआ है, उसको खुद को ही नहीं समझ पड़ता है. पता नहीं पुरानी फोटो उसकी देख रहा था, बाल सूखते जाता है लोगों के. क्या कर रहा था? Keep sniffing women's hair.
He's an old school hugger.
अरे पता नहीं यार, very creepy. But the point is, he was the only guy who could have beaten Trump, if you ask me. And imagine, this is their victory. Nobody wants to admit to this. In COVID, imagine if there was no COVID, what would have Trump done to them with a booming economy?
With a booming economy,
He would have walloped them. If they have any humility, epistemic humility, the Democrats, they will go back to the center. Because the Republicans now, I don't know. It's actually, I wanted to know Abhijit's view and Adit's view on this. So now, Abhijit and Adit, both of you, what do you guys think? Now the Republicans know the kind of coalition that can work for them. A coalition that has certain types of Latinos, certain types of African Americans, certain types of Asians. See, it's very clear. So if Oppression Olympics is the worldview, I don't know how many of you are following what's happening in a certain school district. I forgot the name of the journalist.
Is it New York?
That Muslim journalist who was the friend of Daniel Pearl. I forgot her name. I'm completely blank.
Asra Nomani.
Asra Nomani. So I don't know how many of you are following her fight in school districts, right? So imagine, there is this kind of an Indian... See, the Asians, which includes Indians too. I don't know why they don't include it in America, but it's very weird. But yeah, so basically the Asian bloc, who's gone on this, financial stability where it's maybe 90K per annum and stuff like that. Now they are out of the Oppression Olympics. You're too rich, right? So they're going to dump. Now, if the Republicans were smart, what do you think, Abhijit? Should the Republicans now, in fact, say, okay, Trump, you've done our job. You did what you were supposed to do. You came in, you smashed everything. You basically created chaos. Now we get in. I'm not saying Rubio is the answer. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying maybe a Rubio or a Ted Cruz, a person who can carry all
Nikki Haley and Dan Crenshaw, 2024. Nikki Haley and Dan Crenshaw.
It's not going to work, and I'll tell you why. Remember, Indians were made politically prominent by the Republicans way before the Democrats did. Be it Nikki Haley, be it Piyush Jindal. I mean, Piyush Jindal is kind of, he considers it Indian food ethnic or whatever. But people like that were pushed way ahead because in the Republican Party, Indians are not in competition with Latinos and Blacks. In the Democrats, if you want ethnic identity to come, an Indian ethnic identity to push you, to propel you to the front, you are in direct competition with the Black and Latino lobbies that are extremely strong out there, mobilize much better, and you can't do jack shit about it. In spite of that, 75% of Indians voted for Trump. I mean, going by the initial polling that we know about, right? So clearly the Indian outreach never worked for this thing. Why would you bet on a Latino or Black outreach? Okay. I think the problem here is that we are looking at two separate issues. One is the ethnic group. Second is the industrial grouping. I don't think the ethnic grouping is going to work for the Democrats. The industrial grouping, and this is where I'm hoping, 3D printing and bringing back manufacturing jobs to America will reverse that trend, hopefully. May work. But look, I'm not too sure about that. That said, I think it's also equally important to remember that why are the two coasts where you have the wealthiest people who also tend to be the most lefty pro-wealth distribution policies. And it has actually nothing to do with the fact of them being pro-wealth distribution. Everybody who talks pro-wealth distribution is an A-grade fraud. Okay, they're just trying to create more social havoc to manipulate. So this is actually more of a manipulation thing. the power in money today is to go on talking about workers' rights, workers' rights, workers' rights, and destroy all those uh, uh, social liberties, in the sense where you can actually clamp down on people a lot better, rather than have a genuinely free open market where you can't clamp down on people so well. Because
Right.
socialism has never led to more freedom. Tell me one socialist society, including Scandinavia, by the way, which has led to greater personal freedoms.
Yeah.
You do not have those personal freedoms in Sweden. You do not have those personal freedoms in Denmark. You do not have those personal freedoms in Finland and Norway. And I think people will actually be quite surprised if they go there to realize how few, and because of their small size, they're quite happy to brainwash you into believing you have those freedoms, which you really don't.
So
Yeah.
so I'll respond to Kushal's question, and it's going to be weird because I'm going to agree with both Kushal and Abhijit on a two different levels, and I'll tell you why. I think we also tend to view a lot more into presidential campaigns. So when it comes to these groups like Latino Americans, maybe that, but Indian Americans, they don't matter in the larger presidential campaign. But where the Indian Americans come into a factor is local congressional campaign and Senate campaigns. And that is where America is sort of governed. I mean, a lot of us forget that even if Biden wins, Mitch McConnell is still the majority leader in the Senate.
Yep.
He's
Yes.
still going to screw with Biden whenever he gets a chance.
Exactly.
4 years of agony.
And in the House, the Republicans have managed to flip around 7 seats or something.
Dude, 2022 is going to be a nightmare for those guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is historically proven that 2 years into the presidency, the opposition always does better. And that is why. So I'll give you the example of about 4 or 5 seats. There is 1 seat here in Houston, 1 in Dallas. There is a few in Florida where Indian Americans are more than, a significant percent. And here they clearly were the deciding factor in making sure another half Indian American lost on a Democrat ticket. So that is where the whole issue happens. So when you have people like a Pramila Jayapal and a Rokhana, there are also people in the Democratic Party like Raja Krishnamurthy or Meera Jantani in the Republican Party from Ohio.
Yes.
So I think that is sort of the dichotomy we are going to see. Also, where it is changing is a lot of Senate races and House races are being funded by Indian American folks. So right now, they were viewing it in a very, I don't think सामने से आके मांगते थे कि this is what we want. These are the positions we want you to take. But I think that is changing. And that is also changing because people in America are also more aware of the Indian political repercussions, right? The biggest change in American attitude towards Indian politics has not been after 2014. In fact, after 2014, even people like John Oliver, Stephen Colbert, and maybe not Stephen Colbert, but John Oliver himself did actually sort of positive shows on Prime Minister Narendra Modi coming to New York. And these guys are far on the left. What changed the attitude was Article 370 being abrogated in Kashmir.
Yeah.
And I clearly saw that 1 month. Even after 2019 elections, that did happen. But then Kashmir happened, and suddenly you had the left lobbies, some of the Pakistani lobbies getting activated, and suddenly you saw those pieces coming in New Yorker and Atlantic and Politico and New York Times. And that is what forced people to take positions on Indian politics, and that is what saw a lot of backlash amongst Indian Americans. So I think we're going to see a lot of fundraising drives, a lot of Senate things. Whether that takes in, I don't know, but like this time it happened that Sharad Kumar, who happens to fund a lot of Donald Trump, he actually said that Trump should come out saying that he wants the H1s to green card process happen quicker. Now I don't know if that was any relation to what happened now, where the priority date got pushed up. I think that got pushed up because of the COVID, the visas not being, green cards not being issued because of COVID. But there are small maneuverings within the systems that you can do to make sure they benefit X ethnic group or Y or something like that. And I think that will happen in the Republican Party, because I think they have plateaued, right? They cannot gain more votes from whites, more than 70 million. Like, this is the most a Republican has ever managed. The only place where they can gain more votes, and this is kind of going to shock a lot of viewers, because I was looking at the old election data, right? Because the devil lies in the details. And I'll get you guys to guess. In the last 20 years, what Republican politician do you think has done the best in California?
What
Just-
Republican politician?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Would you like to hedge a guess, Kushal?
वो औरत थी शायद.
No, it's actually George W. Bush in 2004. He came to within 1.2 million votes of John Kerry.
Oh, wow.
George W. Bush actually got more than 5.5 million votes in 2004.
Yeah.
And now, when the number of voters in California have increased, the Republicans only managed to get 4 million.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, even if the Republicans look to match what George W. Bush did, this whole popular vote argument completely busts. Because there is an additional 2 million votes for Republicans if they sort of have a centrist sort of face or something. I don't think Ted Cruz is going to be that face, but Marco Rubio certainly is a face. Or Nikki Haley.
Or Dan Crenshaw, man. Dan Crenshaw as VP. Let's go.
So I have a point here, Aadit.
Yeah.
So this is taking forward what you have mentioned about California.
Just before you keep going, I just want to make one clarification. So Abhijit has just popped out because he has to go on a real TV show, but but he might pop in a bit again. Go ahead, Kushal.
Yeah, so isn't that making my point, right, Aadit? That's what I was saying, that if they don't have a polarizing figure like Trump, and they have, like, I'm not saying who it is. Like, I like Ted Cruz. I like him. I've always been, I don't like his religious views, but that's my personal thing. I mean, I'm a religious person.
No, but Kushal, that's the thing, right? His religious views is preventing him from becoming the center-right figure.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have, like John Cornyn, his fellow senator from Texas, is not as much of a religious thing as Ted Cruz is. But I think Ted Cruz actually believes in this. I don't think he's putting on an act.
Yeah. And that's why I was talking to you. I was mentioning somebody like a Dan Crenshaw because he might be a religious guy, but at the end of the day, that's not one of his primary defining characteristics. His primary defining characteristics are that he's a conservative, small government, and decorated veteran and all that. So that makes him slightly more appealing to the center than somebody like a Ted Cruz, whose religious identity is a pretty defined.
And I'll tell you something: the American South, whether it be Republican or Democrat, is itching for a face to come back after Bush. Because after Bush, you see, look at who the nominees were. Like John McCain. Technically, John McCain was the last sort of centrist American Southern Republican, right? Then you had Obama and Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney was from Utah, but then he was the governor of Boston, so he was always seen as a Boston face. Then you had then you had Hillary and Trump, both New Yorkers. After that, you had in the race, you had Sanders. Now again, Biden from the Northeast and Trump. So if there is a centrist sort of Republican or some face from the southern part of America that comes, I'm telling you, boss, he's going to sweep Georgia and North Carolina, and he's going to be a force to watch, reckon with, even in Virginia.
Go ahead. Sorry, Kushal, you were making a point. Go ahead.
Yeah, but here's the thing. When it comes to politics, people change and adjust their views very fast. Like I said, politicians are very smart at these things.
Right.
So whether it's a Ted Cruz or anybody else, they could actually mold their views around that.
Yeah.
But what I know for sure is that, look, Biden is, I don't know how else, I mean, आधी पैर तो कब्र में है ही बंदे की.
Exactly.
So this is essentially going to be a Harris presidency.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
This is
Kamala Harris.
presidency.
Yeah, this is a Harris presidency. If the squad and if the Wokias, I call them Wokias, if the Wokias try to push them too much, look, whether you like it or not, see, the average human being does not believe in this weird worldview that these people have. And if that starts to be expressed in way of policy, you can mark my words that, look, human beings at the end of the day, beyond a point, human psychology is the same. If it starts affecting them and their own interest, all the lofty ideals go out of the window. All of it. So you will have a lot of people going to the Republicans just to control these people.
Yeah.
Just to control the wokeness of the Democratic Party. So I think we'll have an answer in the first year and a half of the presidency itself.
So this is going to be a Harris presidency, Kushal, but what we have to see is if this is going to be a Harris cabinet or a Biden cabinet. My gut feeling, this is going to be a Harris presidency with a Biden cabinet. And that provides, which is why
That won't get anything done.
the Democratic Party is the more likely party to split rather than, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw Mehra Nair, the filmmaker Mehra Nair, her son got elected unopposed to some position in New York, right?
Yeah,
and he was about socialist, like publicly, वो socialist democratic का part है. And if you see his tweets, मतलब मुझे देख के डर लग गया. Like, I will tax more people, this, that, all that Green New Deal and things like. What is amazing about the far left is they will always talk in non-specific. That is one thing similar between Trump and the far left.
Yes.
That is the are made for each other.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I was watching Trump's press conference, and whatever side you are on, I mean, that was insane, right? Yesterday, for 15 minutes, he absolutely came on air and spouted. There was nothing sane about those 15-minute conversations.
Yeah.
I don't give a damn if I'm a Trump supporter, but that was it.
Mano ya na mano, we will miss him.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I mean, as someone in the media, as someone who likes to write, I'm going to miss this entertaining figure. But honestly speaking, he had mainstreamed some of such nonsense that I'm glad that is gone. I mean, kal dekh ke he's like, if you count the legal ballots, I win. If you count the illegal
ballots,
yeah. I mean, who the heck says?
Yeah. Okay, so I have just one last question before I take the super chats, and I'll let you guys go. But the one question that I wanted to ask, I'll start with Kushal and come to Aadit, is in terms of, I think we kind of address this question in terms of, like, it'll be interesting to see that is this a, if, as Aadit says, that this is a Harris presidency with a Biden cabinet. If, let's say, that does happen, let's say that pans out, what does that mean for India in terms of the US's policy towards India, towards Kashmir, towards, CAA and stuff like that, especially the more sort of issues that have been in the public eye, like especially CAA and Kashmir. If it's a Biden cabinet with a Harris presidency, what does that mean for, their attitude towards India then?
What it means for India from their point of view, or from India's
from their point of view, because we obviously have the same guy in charge, so we'll react the way we've been reacting, I suppose. But from their point of view,
I think they will have to sit down and realize that they have a government in India now that has the absolute mandate of the people of India. They have to realize that if they antagonize the current Indian Prime Minister and the current Indian government, they're playing with fire.
Yeah, they're antagonizing the people, essentially.
Yeah, they are antagonizing the people, and they will have to accept this one basic fact. The Honorable Prime Minister Modi has a humongous following in Indian Americans. Humongous. Howdy Modi was not a joke.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't matter what Sadanand Dhume thinks. It doesn't matter what many people
Dhume wasn't there. I was there. He's spouting nonsense on Howdy Modi.
Yeah. So let me tell you, Sadanand can have his views. It's okay. I mean, all the best to Sadanand. He's part of the establishment, so he's gonna give an establishment's view. But America deals with Saudi Arabia that beheads people. I always say that to people. America deals with a China that is basically currently creating concentration camps and killing Muslims.
Yeah.
America deals with Pakistan that does, I mean, we don't even need to count. To say that America will, to even come up with this, that America won't deal with India for Kashmir. Okay, India tells America, screw you, we're not backing down. We'll even take POK. America is going to attack us?
Nope.
They're not going to do anything. Yeah. Secondly, the Indian American community may not be vital in the presidential race in terms of votes, although I think they do play a role in such a close election. Every vote counts.
Agreed.
Second, who doesn't like money? Are you telling me Democrats don't like Indian money?
Yeah.
Are you telling me Indian Americans, if they antagonize Modi and India beyond a point, it has already, see, you may not like it. I am totally on board with Aadit. I don't think so. It will be 60-40. It is going to be 65-35 for sure. Arey, yaar, Aadit stays there. I mean, I have family there. Sham, you stay there. We speak with our people, right? We speak within the community. I mean, Aadit and I know common people, and who are very politically active in America. Actually, I did not even know we had common friends there, but it came out that Aadit and I have common friends in America, and we're all politically active.
Come
and
on, man, I'm a Gujarati. Why are you surprised by that?
So I was calling people from India and telling them this time, think before you vote for the left. They would ask me, should we vote for Trump? I was like, look, I would vote for the libertarian because that's me. But I don't know, if you want to vote for Trump, please vote for Trump.
Yeah.
But don't vote for the left. They're not good for us anymore as a community. I've always maintained Indians should vote for the heterodoxy. The heterodoxy in America is the conservative today.
So there are 2 points to what Kushal is saying, right? First, why don't we talk about the Jewish Americans in the same way? They don't matter in terms of electoral thing, right? But have you ever seen any American antagonize the Jewish American lobby? And I'm not even talking about or something about Israel. When the Squad talked about Israel, the first people to bash them were Democrats, not Republicans.
Yeah,
right? That movement, that whatever Rashida Tayyab was talking about, BD something, I forget.
BDS.
So I forget that name. Second thing about the Indian American, what Kushal said is absolutely true. Paisa kisko nahi pasand hai. And third thing, a lot of Indian Americans are pissed off not because the Democrats don't like, or the far left Democrats don't like Modi. It's about them not liking those who like Modi.
Yeah.
Right, and there is a distinct difference there. You cannot like XYZ leader, but you cannot just bash people because they might not like what you are trying to say.
Yes.
And in terms of CA and NRC, I don't think they're going to say anything. Yes, you'll have a couple of affiliated, like nondescript organizations. Some, there is this funny joke in the newsroom where Aaron Sorkin, like Charlie Skinner says, the family foundation of the foundation of families might oppose. So it's going to be something like that. Family foundation for the foundation of families might object to them saying. And a few Democrats will, because their votes also come from a lot of people. If you saw those hearings that happened last year, right? A lot of people said constituents from Kashmir, they call, kitne Kashmiri Americans hai America mein, aur wo sab kya democratic constituencies mein exist karte hai in Northeast and Southwest. I mean, so in a lot of it was also lobbying groups calling them, and some Kashmiri Americans will have genuine grievances. I am not disputing that, with the internet not being there and stuff like that. But they were not debating that. They would take 370 and then they would go on a rant about something about guns and, sort of nonsense. So that will not fly in a Biden presidency. Wo ek do hearings honge, but I kid you not, if Biden wins, the outreach from New Delhi must have already started, and you can take it from me in writing. In the next 2 years, Biden will be on a plane visiting India.
Oh, for sure.
Or even Kamala Harris would be there, because New Delhi will acknowledge the pivotal role that Harris will play in the presidency, and like it or not, you have to deal with whoever is in power.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I have a question for Aadit. So just one more question, Aadit. I wanted to know your views. So the previous generation of Indians, in my experience, I mean, even I've lived there and have family there, that was a different generation. That was very much, we watch CNN, Fox News is crazy, we like Bill Maher. Let's just be very clear.
Yeah.
The rise of the conservative internet commentator. I'm not talking about, those crazy radio talk shows. I'm not talking about Alex Jones. I'm not talking about all of that. I'm talking about the Shapiro. I'm talking about the Crowders. Now, I may not be a fan of Crowder, but the point is, a lot of Indians listen to Shapiro, listen to Crowder. Young Americans, I'm talking about Americans raised in, born and raised in America. They are listening to these ideas. They're getting exposed to all of this, Aadit. So don't you think these things also will eventually influence kids of Indian American origin too? It's not like they are, kind of immune to these ideas, right?
So with Indian Americans, you always have to look at where they migrated to. So if they went to New York and California, because those were the two big places, right? I think they shaped a lot of thinking of how people used to think. And essentially, those two states were left of center. Even if they had voted for a Reagan or a senior Bush, they were left of center. So you did find Indian Americans sort of adapting to this, because Indian Americans do have this tendency of adapting to whatever environment they are in, right? But then also you had a spate of Indian Americans coming to Texas, coming to Florida, which places may be Republican, but the cities are very centrist. And I forgot to mention what Abhijit said about Houston. I'll take that as an example. Most Democratic cities give Republicans give a mandate of 70-30 or 60-40. Even in this election, Harris County voted 55-43.
Wow.
Biden. Yeah, there was a 43% vote for Trump in Harris County, and there were other counties very actually led in the suburbs and stuff. So the southern cities are very, and Miami-Dade is a classic example. As democratic as it gets, yet you had the Trump. So I think what has happened is Indians migrating. Look at that. 53-41, is it?
It is 53-46.
53-46. That is Miami.
Yeah, it's in Miami. Wow.
Yeah, Hillary won that 64-36 last time.
Yeah.
So that is the Indian Americans also coming to these centrist cities, and that has changed, right? But now you are seeing a divide between the Indian American generation. So my generation was the first generation to come to US, and the second generation who was born, so same age but who were born and raised here, they are sort of leaning more democratic. But as our generation starts to get kids and they grow older and things like that, I think they would tend to be more centrist because of where they are. So Indian Americans are in that inflection point where I see the needle moving a little bit to the center. But the most important thing is, I don't think there are many Indian American fans of Bernie Sanders or AOC.
Really?
Yes,
I can't imagine that. Apart from New York, and like
most Indian Americans come in the top 3 tax brackets. You don't want to pay more taxes.
Yeah, that's true.
And
I know Florida Indians are all Republican. They love the Republican Party.
And let's face it, and I'm not being chauvinistic at all. Majority of the Indians here are Gujaratis, right? Gujaratis pay more taxes.
Yeah,
but there is a caveat I would like to put. Like the British Gujaratis in last election who completely went to the Conservative Party and sort of swung the election in some seats. We have to acknowledge that. And Boris Johnson actually went and, he visited more mandirs in a day than many people visit in a week before the election. But the reason why there is a difference is because Boris Johnson has a Priti Patel, who is the number 2 face, and she is a British Indian face. The Republicans will need an Indian American face of consequence, not Nikki Haley or Bobby Jindal, who are brown by nature and Christian by religion. They will actually need maybe a Hindu American face, I don't know, but a face who is not
Tulsi.
Maybe, but then Tulsi is economically very socialist.
Yeah.
So I like Tulsi on a lot of things, and Indian Americans, so they will flee from her even faster than they do from Biden. So you will need a very centrist face, and it has to come from either Texas, Florida, or Ohio, because those are the 3 new catchment states for the Republicans. And contrary to a lot of people what they say, I don't think Texas is ever going to turn blue. Not for another 15-20 years. Is Barbie
I like Texas.
Who doesn't, right? इस बार भी बोल रहे थे Trump actually won with a higher margin compared to last time.
Okay, so before we wrap up for the day, let's take a few questions because we got a lot of questions. So we're going to try and take as many as we can.
I have to go in like 10 minutes. So yeah.
Okay, so you can pop out whenever you're ready to go, Aadit. So if we can take the questions, and if we can try and answer like
before
short answers to the question.
Somebody asked me, this shirt is not related to anyone winning in America, guys. I literally woke up at 8 o'clock, brewed some coffee, and put my shirt on. Someone is like, why are you wearing a blue shirt today? I'm like, I don't know. I always wear blue.
He's ready. He's ready to recognize where the wind is blowing.
I have a green phone. I don't know if that counts for anything.
You have been exposed, Mr. Kapadia.
Yeah, you have been exposed.
Anyone I don't know, I was being exposed.
So I think we already discussed this question, but this is from Sriram Prasanna. He's asking, if Biden wins, what will happen with the Kashmiri issue, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Iran? Can we expect a trade deal? I think he will be softer on Iran though than Trump. Softer on Iran? Yeah, because he was the one who engineered the Iran deal with Obama. So I don't suspect him going a little harder on Iran. But I don't see much changing on national security. Biden is as right on national security as you can get in the Democrats. So this is, let me ask you this, Adit, you might know a bit more about this as well. So just a short answer if you want. Shashidharan Karthikeyan is asking, in a TED speech, Van Jones was saying a candidate can lose both popular votes and electoral college and still become the president through the House. Is Trump trying to go towards that direction, and is that realistic at all?
I doubt it, because
Yeah.
then, I mean, unless and until he was talking about faithless electors. See, I think this was a whole debate because there was a chance where Trump would win Georgia and Pennsylvania, and Biden would be at 270 and Trump would be at 268. And
Yes.
then it's not like Lok Sabha where they cannot change. These are all electors that they sell, and if there is one faithless elector and it goes
just
269
move, yeah.
to 69, if it's a tie, then the House and Senate get to vote on who becomes the president. But I don't think that's going to happen, because now we're seeing Georgia and Pennsylvania flipping. So, and another thing that has happened is no Republican of consequence has come out in support of Trump. Actually, the governor of Maryland, I was watching CNN, and Rick Santorum bashed Trump right after
Yeah.
he said on thing. And in fact, Trump's son said that Republicans better start speaking up. His own party is not supporting him.
Yeah. Okay, so there's another question let me put this to you, Kushal. This is from Soundtrip. He's asking, isn't Biden more pro-Pak? He was at the forefront of Obama administration giving military aid to Pakistan, and Pakistan government also gave him the second highest civilian award.
Yeah, he is, but a lot of things have changed in American geopolitics too, right? The world has changed, so Biden's new reality has to be countered and factored in, and Biden's level of sanity too.
And this is again before Modi. This is again before the Indian government
Also, I
gave
keep
them such a
telling
mandate.
this. In American politics, pro-Pak does not mean anti-India. Pro-India does not mean anti-Pak. Please remember that. Trump was pro-India, but वो anti-Pak से statement देता था. I have not seen Trump administration do anything at all on Pakistan except for give once a year he would say we will cut $10 million aid to Pakistan. Times of India, Indian Express, Hindustan Times would all and our folks would retweet saying, "अरे देखो, Donald जी ने दिखा दिया Trump को Pakistan को जलवा." You know, things like
yeah.
I mean, so I don't think Trump has done anything at all. I mean, have you heard anything? I haven't seen anything that Pakistan has done. But
No.
one quick point, Sam, before you take the next question. Pakistan right now is a bundle of contradictions where you have Imran Khan. I mean, Pakistani police is fighting the Pakistani army. How crazy is this? Which country? I mean, we have to give
Meme
Pakistan
nation.
first. मैंने ऐसा कभी लाइफ में सुना नहीं है, ऐसा पाकिस्तान में हुआ है. So I don't think Biden's going to do anything on Pakistan.
Okay. This is from Gaurav Chamania. Gaurav is asking, this is for Abhijit, he's gone, but still. Abhijit, bhai, aaj kuch positive to bol do with respect to India-US future relations. I think we've said some positive things, especially...
अभिजीत के मुंह से कभी कुछ पॉजिटिव नहीं निकलता है, उम्मीद करना बंद कर दो.
Jitendra
is relying on us to give the positive spin.
Jitendra Salgaonkar, greetings all. What are your thoughts on people offering BLM and Antifa terrorist Pinochet-style free helicopter rides? I didn't see that anywhere, but I think we made that point already. That I think, and I was sharing this tweet, and that's why I was sharing this particular tweet right here. Oh, not this one. It was this one right here. So this is Spanberger, who's a congressman, Democratic congressman, centrist Democratic congressman. She's on a Democratic caucus call, and she said, "We lost races that we shouldn't have lost. Defund the police almost cost me my race because of an attack ad. Don't say socialism ever again. We need to get back to basics." And she's yelling at Nancy Pelosi. Republican. Yeah.
No,
but what did Nancy Pelosi tell her? वो भी तो बात बोल दे.
Nancy Pelosi basically rebuked her. Nancy Pelosi said, "Nee, we won because of these things only." And if Nancy Pelosi wants to be completely idiotic, that's totally up to her. But at least within the Democratic Party, there is kind of an understanding.
No, I'll tell you why Nancy Pelosi said this. Because there is a huge chance that Nancy Pelosi might not get to be speaker this time.
Yep.
And a speaker's position when the Democrats are in power is a very strong sort of position. And let's not forget, see, Joe Biden might be an old president, which he is, but there are a lot of sort of older Democratic voices like Maxine Waters, Dianne Feinstein, who's 89, who's a sitting senator from California, and Nancy Pelosi, who's 80 plus. right? Or who will be very close to 80. So who wants to be? So Democrat, within the Democratic establishment, there is this anger कि आपके सब senior leadership, Bernie Sanders, right, who's older too, आपके सारे senior leaders are all above 70, 75. If you have the younger people coming, and let's not make any bones about it, the younger people have voted more Democrat than Republican this election. So they're like, why don't they have more representation? So Nancy Pelosi is pandering to the far left because usko speaker ki chair chahiye. And I don't think she's going to get it this time.
This is a question from Karan Gangani. Hi, being in the US for 3 years now, I'm very skeptical about Kamala being a vice president, but why is there very minimal quest to check where she's coming from? It's like the media has completely already accepted her. Well, we know why she's accepted her, because she's a twice person of color. She's black and she's Indian, and when she needs to be, she can completely become Indian, and when she needs to be, she can completely become a black Baptist. So if you basically speak anything against Kamala Harris, then you're being twice racist.
Can I say something? That dosa that she made, that was a hideous looking dosa.
It was a slap in the face of South Indians everywhere.
No. But I will tell you this. She still is the worst. The worst was Pramila Jayapal making that.
Without a doubt, dude. Yeah.
Can I, as a Punjabi who has paneer almost every day of his life, can I say my sentiments are hurt?
Yeah.
I was willing to trigger the woke in you, the woke paneer lover in you, Kushal. nothing like a Punjab. And trust me, Gujaratis have a special relationship with paneer. We love eating paneer, but we hate what it has done to Gujarati weddings. Because now people think paneer tikka masala is like a Gujarati wedding. I think they just put it so that kids don't whine. Ki main kya khaun shaadi mein, But that was hideous. So
yeah. Imagine now that the next 4 years is going to be so many more photos of paneer tikka masala.
Oh my God! Yeah, my
Does
body is ready.
A committee? Maybe we'll have a Malai Kofta paneer tikka committee in the new Congress.
There's a couple of questions. There's a few questions for Abhijit that unfortunately we won't be able to take. But I can maybe put one of those questions to you guys. I think Ajay Nair has a question. How does this result augur for New Delhi? We've already answered this question, Ajay, so you can go back to the video and check out our answer there. All right. Potato Fry says, hi, Kushal. Sorry, missed your stream today. Love to you as well, Sham. Okay. Thanks very much, Potato. Digvijay. Guys, what about the squad and Pramila Roh Khanna? Can't tolerate those guys. Why in India do we confuse communists? Both are opposite ideology. So we kind of answered the squad and Pramila and Roh Khanna question as well, Digvijay. So if you want to go back and check it out on the stream. Soham has a question. Red states have right to work laws, so there are benefits for me to live in a red state and work in a blue state, but my relocation is taxed thanks to the Republican tax reform. There is no online tax in STL, but Illinois has that tax. I think you were making a point like that. That's right, about why so many people are living and moving to sort of red states. So I think we talked about that a little bit as well earlier in the stream.
And the far left has to understand, next time you accuse a Trump voter of being racist or something, you have to understand why the hell is he voting for Trump. And it's not because of race. It is because you are saying that, you pay less, you pay this taxes, these are not enough, let us charge you more.
Yeah.
And Bill Maher had this wonderful point last week, where he said the only people threaten to leave America if their guy doesn't come are rich Hollywood elites who don't leave America. Right. so it's like, calm the hell down when people say that, we are going to leave America and stuff. But there is one thing where he was right about that Trump will do some sort of a shenanigan and try not to leave the White House.
Yeah.
And he is trying to do that. I mean, let's not make two bones about it. This election is not a fraudulent election.
Yeah, that's what Yash Gandhi was also asking. Is there any chance of Trump winning? No, I doubt it, because again, even if he tries to go the court route and he's like, I got fraudulent and this and that. The Republicans have done pretty well in the Senate. They've won Senate seats, they've won House seats. So if you're complaining about the presidential election, you have to complain about the Senate and House.
Why do you think Republicans are not complaining and not supporting Trump? Also, first of all, they are very smart.
Right. Yep.
Exactly. And let me tell you a couple of interesting things about the Senate. They flipped the Alabama Senate, which was expected. But in the state of Maine, where Trump just won one district and sort of lost the whole state. The centrist senator, Susan Collins, who actually is on a Republican ticket, had voted to repeal the Affordable Care, had not voted to repeal, had voted with the Democrats and had voted against the Supreme Court justice, won her seat. People were so it is the same state giving a split verdict, rewarding a centrist Republican and giving a centrist Democrat, and not going for Trump. So I don't think it is a vote for the far left or something. A lot of swing states are giving a very split verdict, and the fact that senators have not lost their seats is a big thing. So I don't think this is going to happen. And the Republican Party is gearing for a fresh face in 2024. If Trump goes out sort of nicely, without making any more controversy, he'll still be accommodated. If he does not, you can take it from me. I'm making a prediction. He won't even be invited to speak in the convention properly. एक या दो commercial डाल देंगे उसकी, because the Republicans are eager to move past Trump.
Yeah.
Very eager.
Okay. Chintan Gujjar says we're going to miss Abhi's Nagin dance because Abhijit had promised that he's going to do a Nagin dance if Trump wins. So that's a shame. We'll have to wait for you for that.
He can do the Nagin dance for the legal ballots. I won't do for the illegal ballots.
Yeah. Kapil Gund had a question. How can white Americans even vote for someone who has failed to control the pandemic and has a massive personal debt? Dude, because look at the economy. Look at what he's done with the economy. If the pandemic had not have happened, Trump would have won this election without a shadow of a doubt.
First of all, in the South, in the Bible areas, regardless of whoever happens, it's for the same reason why New York and California vote Democratic. You will have the most centrist face. They'll still vote Democrat. Similarly, they're still going to vote Republican, whoever is the face, right?
Yeah.
Trump actually is not your quintessential Republican politician. He's not a values guy. His position on LGBTQ is probably as progressive as most of the Democrats. And his personal life is so colorful that the people with the family values voter in the South will probably not agree with it. In spite of that, they will usually vote for Republicans. But the swing states, where he won is because in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, they were pissed off at the local Democrat administration. And he's not wrong when he said it with a different context that Philly and Detroit are corrupt. He was trying to make this whole racial argument, which is very unfair to the cities, but they are corrupt. Flint, Detroit, Philadelphia, they are ruled by corrupt mayors. Michigan, so they are pissed off. And let's not forget, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania all have had Republican governors in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
It's not unfathomable that they can vote. अगर वो governor के लिए Republican डाल सकते हैं, तो president के लिए भी डाल सकते हैं.
Yeah.
So this is the whole. But what Republicans need is a guy who can win the popular vote.
Yes. Okay, there's another point here. So this is more of a point than a question from Aditya Jayawant, which is a good point. Some idiot variety of Californians keep moving to Arizona and Texas and keep voting for the same policies that made them leave to avoid high taxes in the first place. It's a fair point.
मैं तो टेक्सास में रह के मोदी जी वोट डालता हूँ. I don't vote in American elections.
So this is a question. This is more of a statement, but I want to turn it into a slightly broader point really quickly. And a quick answer from you, Kushal. This is from Shaurya Garg. He's asking, India needs Trump, Bharat needs Trump. And I don't like this sentiment very much because it kind of almost says that India basically has no control over its destiny. Everything that happens to India is controlled by who gets elected in America. I think India also has dropped the ball in a large sense in terms of like how it's handled its foreign policy, its MEA, and how vocal and forceful its Ministry of External Affairs and all its IFS officers have been and diplomats have been in terms of dealing with other countries. Like it's not all, who gets elected in which country is not the only thing that determines that country's relationship with India, right? Kushal, this is for.
I think, these are complex issues. Like, you have to understand you're talking about a very established, rich country and a country that is developing. So it's like chalk and cheese. Indian foreign policy will evolve as and when India becomes financially stable. So we can't really, I don't think so Texas will secede. The only state that has the probabilities of seceding is California, by the way, FYI. Yeah, so
no state is going to secede. The secession warriors don't know that when they do, they won't be able to travel to Europe for free without a visa.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Kushal.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, I think these are. See, how do you answer this? Like, what India has no control over its destiny is, I think, ridiculous. India has a control over its destiny. India does what it wants to do. India just had bad policymakers. See, sometimes we need to give credit to our old people also, na, for making horrendous foreign policy decisions. सब कुछ वही लोग कर रहे हैं, मतलब अच्छा भी होता है वही करते हैं, बुरा भी होता है वही करते हैं, तो हम क्या कर रहे हैं, झुंझुना हिला रहे हैं क्या इधर बैठ के हमारे फॉरेन पॉलिसी ऑफिस?
Exactly.
No, and let's not forget, guys, that the guy who is our external affairs minister now, Sushma Swaraj was a great external affairs minister, but the guy who's now, he was the ambassador to US and has relationships across all party lines, right? So Jayashekar will make sure that this doesn't happen. And the second thing is, people forget, 2014 to 16, Obama was the president. And Modi and Obama did podcasts together. They wrote 2 or 3 columns together.
Best friends. Yeah.
And again, I cannot stress this enough. The first American president to come to India on a Republican parade was not Donald Trump. It was Barack Obama. And he did within 6 months of Modi becoming the prime minister. Yeah. And guess what? Biden is going to govern from the same place as Obama is, for good or for bad. So I don't see that changing. If people think that Obama and Modi had a great working relationship, Biden and Modi will have the same.
Okay.
What will India do? Will India come out and say we don't accept the elections of America?
Naveen Chandra had a question. He's asking, I am your opponent, center left. By the way, you guys lecture about trust in institutions. Why the hell is your Papa Trump mistrust in electoral institutions? First of all, Naveen, I had no idea Trump was my dad. If you'll excuse me, I have to call him and ask for my money. I'm going to ask him for $10 million so I can quit the show and go live in an island by myself. Thanks for reminding me, Naveen.
No, 15 minutes ago, I said what Trump said is a bunch of bullshit. Like, I don't know how...
I know, we all agree that, yeah.
I literally tweeted today that Trump is a sore loser.
Yeah, which he's being a sore loser. And he's wrong.
Not a loser, he's a sore winner also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's just so
he's sore all the time.
I don't buy this, but then again I also bash the Democrats who keep saying that popular vote is representative and electoral college is not. Too bad. Now you have the House and the presidency. Agar aapko reform karna hi hai, to lao election reform abhi.
Yeah.
Don't whine about it 4 years from now that popular vote and electoral college are not representative. You guys don't do that when you are in power and then whine about it when you are voted out of power. Ye kya bakwas hai?
Yeah, that's fair. This is a good statement from Siddhant Shukla. Mitch McConnell is going to be Senate Majority Leader. Kamala is going to be the Vice President. Biden has a witch under the bed and Satan on the ceiling. That's a good comment. Okay.
I've been the majority leader for more than a decade now.
I know
this.
Will
be more than a decade now.
Okay, final question before we go. Final question before we go. Where did it go? It was right here. I missed it. Oh, here we go. This is from Rishabh Maheshwari. He's saying, Tucker Carlson as GOP nominee views. Would he want to run and his chances?
No.
I don't think
Tucker Carlson? Kahan se aa gaya?
Tucker Carlson as a GOP nominee would be as bad as having Aaron Sorkin as a Democrat nominee. Let them do what they do best. Tucker can do his shows. Sorkin can make beautiful movies and writing and make us all feel good about Democrats and Republicans.
Yes.
But wo nahi aane wale.
That's fair. All right, guys. Well, thank you. This took a while, but thank you for so many of your questions. We really appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed this stream. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you got an idea of what our thoughts are, mine, Kushal's, Aadit's, Abhijit's thoughts are on the elections, and hopefully you had fun. And the next 4 years are going to be, hopefully, they're probably not going to be as fun as the last 4 years were, as crazy as the last 4 years were, but who the hell knows? So, and whatever happens, we'll continue to cover them. But other than that, Kushal and Aadit, thanks a lot for coming on, guys.
Thank you. And they'll be as crazy, boss. You'll have Trump in the opposition tweeting how the election was robbed every 2 weeks.
He'll probably create his own media house and start attacking the Democrats from there. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, guys, thanks again very much. If you like the show, make sure to like, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. Make sure to abuse in the comments as well. Any kind of engagement helps the show out. So go ahead and do that. Thanks for your questions, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.